Good. So, right here, Manny.
That's good. Okay.
Now, again, you know, the whole idea behind the quizzes is that the first one in the series is supposed to show you what it is you don't know how to do. And then, by the second and third quiz, you're supposed to realize how to correct them and fix them and make them go right. So, here's the first question, and a lot of kids, just about everybody in the room, got 2 and -1 here. What they realized is that the pattern was going down by threes. So 5 minus 3 is 2, and 2 minus 3 is -1. However, very few people got the next one right. When they write the function rule, they're talking about y equals mx plus b. They're talking about what is the slope or the rate of change, and what's the y-intercept. So as we look at this, the rate of change is you're going down 3 while you go up 1. So the slope, or the m, is -3. And the y-intercept always pairs up with 0. So 2 pairs up with 0. So it's y equals -3x plus 2. So now a fairly decent number of people got it right. Maybe 5 of you or so got it right. How many people got the rule right? Y equals -3x plus 2. 1, 2, 3. 3 people got it right. Okay. Well, hopefully next time, tomorrow, Monday, it'll be a whole lot better. Okay? Any questions about the table and writing the rule?
No.
Okay. Now, Davis, go ahead.
How did you get +2?
Because it lines up with 0. Whatever lines up with 0 is whatever you want. Okay? All right. So the next question asks us to start with this particular parallelogram or quadrilateral, and then it wants us to reflect it over the y-axis. Now, when it comes to reflecting it over the y-axis, I'm going to use count and repeat. 1, 1, 7, 7, 10, 10, 3, 3. Most people did okay with that. Then they say the devil is in the details. The first thing they say is to label the image A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. And a lot of people left off the primes and the letters. If you did, it cost you 10 points if you left them both off. If you put the letters there without the primes, it cost you 5. Okay? Yeah?
You took 10 points off, and I put the primes, and I got that word.
Well, then the next thing we have to look at is up here.
I said I counted and repeated.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You say you counted and repeated, and that's what a few kids said that lost 10 points. Now, first off, this was worth 20, so you did get half of the points here. But what did I write that you didn't write?
You changed the distance to the y.
Yes, that's very important. You got to tell where you counted to. Now, I'll tell you what. The first year my kids did this on the state test, so many of my kids put down, I counted and repeated. And I fully expected full credit for the kids. And they got no credit. Because the state just didn't acknowledge that as a possible way to do it, even though it works and it's perfect. So then I made them write to the y-axis or to the x-axis, whatever they're going over. And I forget, honestly, what the outcome was. They would at least get partial credit with that. But I will tell you what the state loves to read kids write. The word flip. Notice I flipped the figure, and I should have been a little more specific and wrote, I flipped the figure over the y-axis.
Can we do that?
Yeah, they love, when it's a reflection, they love when you say the word flip.
In this class, can we use it too?
What's that?
We use the.
Yeah, you can use it in here too.
We get full credit?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so the state really likes the term flip. And, you know, look, I think counting and repeating is better because it tells you what to do more. But I'm not going to argue with the state. I'm 53 years old. By the time this year's done, I'll be 54 years old. I'm just not going to argue with the state over whether count and repeat is the best way to say it or flip. It is what it is. We got to make them happy. Okay? So tomorrow you're going to get a quiz like this. And I'll tell you how the quiz could go. The quiz might say flip or reflect A, B, C, D over the x-axis. I might move where A, B, C, D is and ask you to flip it over the y-axis again. I don't know how I'm going to do it tomorrow. And you'll get another table, and you'll have to write a function rule again. You'll also have to write the reason. So if on Monday, Josh, you write, I counted the distance to the y-axis and repeated, you'll get full credit.
Okay.
If you say I flipped the figure over the y-axis, you will get full credit at that point in time. All right, now, again, listen, there are no free rides in life. There's always a consequence. Sometimes the consequence doesn't hit you at the right time, but always, always, always a consequence. Now, the next thing I want to do is talk about your do it. And I noticed that a lot of people skip right to the homework. And hey, listen, there's always a consequence. When I make these sheets up, I make it so that I emphasize the things that are most tested on your test coming up. You can bet that on your test coming up, in numbers 1 and 2, you will have at least 2 out of those 4 questions on your test. And if you choose to skip the do it now and think that you're getting away with something by going ahead and doing the questions in the homework, so it is. I'm not going to fight with you over it. But I do know this. I know when those 2 questions appear on your real test, it's a much better chance you get them wrong. And if you get them wrong, that's 10 points off your test grade. So do you really want to lose 10 points on your test grade? How often have you gotten a grade like a 58 or a 62? And if you had gotten those 10 points, it would have been a 68 or a 72. Now you pass. But because you didn't want to do your do it, you end up failing. I always include lots of test questions in the do it, because it's a place where I know you have done them, you've done them right away, and we go over them, they're fresh in your mind. Some of the most important questions we do on any given day are the do it questions. So if you doodle, if you skip ahead to the homework, if you ignore doing the do it, you do so knowing that it's probably going to hurt your grade. And it will pretty much always hurt your grade. Okay, so here's the answers to number 1. Are there any questions? Okay, number 2. Now we've worked on a question like this pretty much the last 5 or 6 classes in a row. If you've been doing the work all along, I think that you would be getting this right. If you have not been doing the work all along, then you know better at it 5 days later, and you know, that's a shame that you've been going over a question for 5 straight days and you haven't improved on it. Any question on number 2? Okay. Now, number 3, which function is quadratic? Quadratic occurs whenever the variable, the x, is squared. So this is quadratic. The first 2 are not quadratic, they're called linear. Linear is whenever the exponent is 1. Okay, next. Evaluate each of the functions for an input of -3. Input is x, so I put in a -3 for each x in each one of these. There's the answers. -13, -10, 18. Any question about it? Okay. And as far as number 5, a to square root of 121, you could do that on your calculator. Everybody take your calculator now, and I just want to make sure that you practice it. Ava, I'll take that. Now, type in the square root symbol, which is second x squared, I believe.
Second.
Right? Second x squared.
Wait, through the
Yeah.
square root?
Mm-hmm.
Answer.
And then type in 121.
121. I got 11.
And that would be it. 11 it is. So now you know how to use the square root on your calculator. I don't think your calculator knows how to do cube roots, so you got to kind of understand it. Square root means the number that times itself equals 121. In this case, 11 times 11 is 121. I could have said, what's the square root of 100? And that's 10. Because what's 10 times 10? 100. The cube root of -8 means the number times itself, and then again, 3 times equals -8. And it's -2, because -2 times -2 is 4, times -2 again is -8.
Wait, so it can't be 3 times 2 equals 4, and then 4 times 2 equals 8?
It's -2 times -2, not just +2. If it was the cube root of +8, that would be +2. All right, so now we've gone over the do it, we've gone over the quiz, and we've really tried to emphasize some very important kinds of questions for the course that'll help you for next year
I talked to one parent today about the class that their daughter has to take next year, and it's really important to understand that next year's class, if you don't pass the Regents exam at the end of that course, you don't graduate high school.
No.
So the thing that to me is so important about that is if you don't graduate high school, your rate of pay is very low. And if your rate of pay is very low, it's very difficult. Let's say that you work 40 hours a week, and you get paid, if you don't graduate high school, you get paid minimum wage, $8 an hour or so. But if you go out and get yourself a really good job and work at it, you're going to make at least 18 or 20 an hour. So let's just say it's a $10 difference in a 40-hour week. That's $400 a week, which is $1,600 a month. Now, don't you want that $1,600 to come to you?
Yes.
And also, the higher education you get, normally speaking, the less physically demanding your job is. So when you are 45 years old and your body would ache and want to shut down, you'll feel better about going to work. Okay, so today's lesson. Let's start talking about,
It's really what comes down to some vocabulary. There are two key words to today's lesson that we want to talk about. What's the matter, man? Okay. The two key words that we want to talk about are the words complementary and supplementary. And then I want to do a little bit of a review of vertical angles that we talked about yesterday. Okay? The word complementary, you see the word complementary, or you see examples of the word complementary. You see examples of it all over the place. For example, you can see an example of complementary right here. This is a frame out of our door. If you look, this is called molding or miter work, and there's a line where the top piece was cut and the bottom one slips in. Now, if these two, this is 90-degree angle here. If these two angles don't add up to 90, there's a big gap right here. And that would look terrible. So, they make sure that they add up to 90. If one is 40, the other's 50. If one's 45, the other's 45. If one's 30, the other's 60. So complementary means two angles that add up to 90. And it's constantly used all over the place. In your house, in these tiles, there's 90-degree angles. There's 4 90-degree angles in every tile in this room. The cabinets, everything, absolutely everything around this room is made up of right angles. The reason right angles are so important is that right angles are strong. Right angles support things. So if you build right angles, like think about it. Let's say you had a really heavy fish tank that weighed 1,000 pounds. But you put it on a table, and then you put right-angled legs coming down off the table, then you could rest the fish tank on the table, and the right angles will be there. What would happen if the legs right angles like this? It would collapse, right? The whole tank would fall down and break. So that's why 90 is so important. And this term, complementary here, means two angles that add up to 90. So here's two angles, and this is my 90-degree angle. Here's my right angle. So if this guy's 60, what's this guy? 30, good. In other words, n plus 60 is 90. Complementary means adds up to 90. Subtract 60 from both sides, n is 30. And based on the way you guys answered, you probably did it even quicker in your head. All right, but we could write an equation if we wanted to. Next up, the word supplementary. Now, supplementary is also used for positions of support. But this time, it's often used in positions of support where things don't fall down. Anybody ever go camping? Did you use a tent?
No, well, he's a camper, like when.
All right, well, right, you get the camper to sleep in, or you get an RV or something like that. When we go, we're gonna have an RV. But when I was a kid, we used to go to Montauk, Hither Hills, and I would spend a lot of time in tents in Hither Hills. And when you put a tent up, one of the things you do is you run these lines from the tent to the ground that support the tent so the wind doesn't knock it over or blow it down. Do you ever notice on a lot of telephone poles? You go out to the telephone pole, and there's like this wire that comes down from the pole to the ground at an angle, right? Yeah, those things are supplementary. Supplementary are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. And here's a picture of that wire right here, right? So these two angles add up to 180. So if this guy's 110, what's that guy?
70.
70, very good. And like before, we could write the angle, and we could say n plus 110 equals 180, and solve. And again, some of these are so easy you can just do them in your head. I'm writing this out so that a little later on, When we get into more complicated ones, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember when he did that, okay? So complementary means adds up to 90, supplementary adds up to 180. Now, sometimes kids have a little bit of a hard time remembering, which one means adds up to 90? Which one adds up to 180? So I'm gonna show you 2 tricks for remembering how to do it. Okay, complementary, supplementary. I'm gonna show you the way I like to do it and the way Coach Friend liked to do it. And then you remember it whichever way you like to remember it. Coach Friend, he taught here up until last year. Now, I like to do it this way. Do you know how the letter C comes before S in the alphabet? And 90 comes before 180? So that's how I remember it. C comes before S, 90 comes before 180. So complementary means 2 angles that add up to 90. Supplementary means 2 angles that add up to 180. Sometimes they don't draw diagrams like I did. Sometimes they just write a sentence and they say 2 angles are complementary. 1 angle is 50 degrees. How big's the other one? And you just have to know complementary means adds up to 90. Now, Coach would do it this way. He would say there's complementary, there's supplementary. You could take the C and turn it into a 9, so it's complementary. And you could take the S and turn it into an 8, so 180. So whichever way you like to remember it, as long as it makes you happy and you get it right, do it whatever way you want, okay? All right, so if I have a 20-degree angle, what is the complement of a 20-degree angle? 70, good, because complementary means adds up to 90. If I have a 30-degree angle, what is the supplement of a 30-degree angle? 150, good, because 2 angles add up to 180. Excellent. Now, let me scroll this up a little bit. Before we answer this question, what do angles A and B add up to?
180.
No, 90, that's a right angle. In this one, what do angles A and B add up to? 180, good. All right, so we did this question yesterday when we talked about vertical angles. And we said that vertical angles are wherever lines intersect, wherever we see the letter X, and these guys that are across from each other are the vertical angles, and they're always equal. Read that question, answer it. Okay, what do we think, guys? C. Very good, okay? And I think we got one more question for you. Oh, I know what it is. I gotta go to here. Try that one. It says, which 2 angles are complementary? A lot of angles there. Which 2 are going to be complementary? Choice F, G, H, or I? F, G, H, or I? J.
J.
Oh, it's J. Sorry about that. Why would you do that? F, G, H. What's the next letter after H?
I.
I. And what do they put? Estúpido. All right. What 2 letters have to add up to 90 degrees there? Or what 2 numbers? Angles.
5 and 3.
2 and 3. Together they make a right angle right here. 2 and 3. Hold it. This side of the room. Sit down. This side of the room. Look at the calculator's back. John, sit down. Joe, sit down. Come on, get those calculators back. You can come back and straighten your books out. I want calculators to put away. Back to your seats, guys, except Mandy, of course. Okay. Okay, other side of the room, put your calculators back. Do not leave them on the desks. I noticed the number of them left yesterday. Joe, calculator.
Here we go.